You can make a lot of freaking money in tech sales. And as a VP of sales, I had the opportunity to hire people at pretty much every level of the career ladder. And I don't think I've seen at any other company or type of job where you can go from making 80K right out of college to 300K as an enterprise account executive in sometimes under 5 years. My goal today is to give you a realistic perspective on how much money you can expect to make at every single level of the sales career ladder. I will give a brief description of each role. Then we will cite specific data in terms of what the market is paying for that role. Then I will explain what my perspective has been actually hiring for that role. A couple disclaimers before we get into this thing. Number one, we will be using a data set called PAVE. PAVE is the number one compensation data set for high growth tech companies. There are over 5,000 companies in the data set, and the reason that it's probably the most trustable source of data is because it is real-time compensation data that's pulled directly from companies' HR systems. It's also worth noting that this is not a sponsored video. I did used to work for PAVE as their VP of sales, but I would not be using this data if I didn't use it to hire people myself. And the last disclaimer is I will be walking through what is called OTE, or on-target earnings. In other words, this is going to be the total compensation as if you hit your quota. And I can already tell that there are going to be all these whiny people in the comments who are going to say things like, OTE isn't real if you're not actually hitting your quota. Yes, that is true. There are plenty of companies where you cannot hit your OTE because they suck. However, there are many good companies that will pay you your OTE. For the sake of today, stop thinking about if I can hit this OTE and use this as a frame of reference for if I could hit my OTE, this would be fair market compensation. All right, rant over. 3, 2, 1, let's do this thing. Okay, so as we go through this data, I will be citing both the 50th percentile and the 75th percentile for tier 1 geographies in the United States. So the way you can think about this is the 50th percentile is the midpoint for all high growth tech companies in the United States in the data set that are focused in tier 1 geographies like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle. And so let's start with everyone's favorite role in the sales organization, which is the sales development representative, aka SDR. All right, so SDRs are usually openers for the sales org. What that means is they do not close. They are compensated on the number of meetings or opportunities that they are generating for account executives. The 50th percentile, the midpoint for the market, is showing about an $80,000 OTE. Again, that is if you hit your quota, your variable plus your base will equal about $80,000. The 75th percentile shows about $95,000. Now there's some nuance in this first data cut. The first piece is the SDR split between your base and your variable is going to be a little bit different from some of the other roles that we're going to discuss today. While most account executive roles are a 50-50 split, SDR tends to be closer to 70-30. So if you see an 80K comp, you should probably assume that it'll be around 55 to 60K base, and it'll be about 20 to 25K variable. So the 80K is really what I've seen for most entry-level SDRs. That 95K amount is really more for like an enterprise SDR, which would typically come as a promotion 6, 9, sometimes even 12 months in. The key thing here, folks, is do not try to get rich as an SDR. The goal of the SDR role is to get promoted into an account executive role and get really, really good at prospecting. And I've seen a lot of SDRs sign 90K OTE offers with companies that are like old legacy companies, and they know all they can do is pay an SDR 90K because they have no intentions of promoting you. You are much, much better off picking the 80K or even the 75K role and getting into a high growth company that's going to get you from SDR to AE, ideally in 12 months. And once you progress past the SDR role, now we are in the wonderful land of closers. And that brings us to our SMB account executives, or in other words, the small, medium business account executives. So you're now closing your first deals ever. These deals are probably ranging from the sizes of small 4-figure deals, anything as small as sometimes $1,000 or $2,000, to larger 4-figure deals, $10,000. But usually this will stop around $25,000. What you'll see in the data here, the 50th percentile starts at around 115K and then ranges up to about 150K. The latter is what I have seen as a hiring manager. So if you're getting that 115, that really is like a fast close 4 deals a day kind of transactional role. A healthy SMB account executive OTE, I'd say minimum probably starts at 125K, but I have seen plenty of companies that will start folks closer to that midpoint of 150K or 140K 40K, give or take. This is also when the double OTE or the 50-50 split typically comes into place. So if we're looking at a 150K OTE, you would typically expect to make 75K base, 75K variable. And once you're done closing these tiny single-threaded deals, now it's time to go to big boy land where you're a mid-market account executive. And typically what happens in mid-market is you are closing multi-threaded deals with multiple stakeholders, and you have to manage a complex sale that typically lasts more than 30 days. Typically what you'll see at the 50th percentile is $180,000 of an OTE. And then at the 75th percentile, you'll see closer to 220. This is pretty on the dot from what I've seen in the market. We were hiring folks around 200K. So in mid-market, you're looking mostly at 5-figure deals, the occasional 6-figure deal. If someone's getting paid on the upper end of that, I would expect mostly deals over $50,000, pushing into that 6-figure range pretty commonly. And lastly, we have the world of enterprise sales. And I'm going to break this into two different parts of enterprise selling. The first is what Pave defines as a P4 or a level 4. I consider that to be lower enterprise, and lower enterprise is closing some 6-figure deals, maybe mostly 6-figure deals, but very, very rarely are you closing 900K deals or 750K deals. And then there's upper enterprise. And upper enterprise is when you're getting into the deals that are several hundreds of thousands of dollars very frequently, and oftentimes closing 7-figure deals. So for lower enterprise, the comp at the 50th percentile shows about $220,000, and the comp at the 75th percentile shows about $290,000. That's a really wide spread. The lowest that I would typically expect is like 225K. Usually the sweet spot for lower enterprise, from what I've seen, is between 250 and 275. And if you think of it this way, as a mid-market AE, you're probably making 200 or so. As an SMB AE, you're probably making 150 or so. And so the natural jump up next is oftentimes around 250. Then when you get to upper enterprise, the 50th percentile shows 240,000, and then the 75th percentile shows $330,000. That spread is also a little bit wide from what I've seen. Usually when I think upper enterprise, I think that magical big round 300K OTE number. But the last nuance to note with upper enterprise is sometimes because the variable is so large, you may see a higher base just because the company can have massive swings in OTE and payouts when someone is on a 50% variable and might do 300% of their quota in an enterprise deal that makes their entire quota and then some. So sometimes to de-risk things for both the rep and for the company, I've seen a slightly higher base and a smaller variable. And lastly, one thing that I have not covered is how much can you exceed or not in any given one of these roles. And I think it's worth noting that typically the swings in OTE will go up the higher the deal sizes go. So for example, you'll rarely see an SDR that does 400% of their quota because you would have to go from booking 15 meetings to booking 60 meetings. That's a huge jump to have one human do. But as you go up to mid-market, you might close a 6-figure deal that makes your entire quarter and all of your 50K deals as well. Or as you go into enterprise, some of these strategic AEs that are closing Fortune 500 deals, they'll make $1 million in a year off of a 350K OTE because they'll have a $3 million quota and they'll close a $20 million deal. And that's the deal that makes their entire year and then some. The more the dollars go up, usually the bigger the swings. Alrighty, folks, if you liked what you saw here, click that sub button right now. And the reason for that is this is just one episode of many episodes to come as part of the Advice from a VP of Sales series. Peace out.